What's going on, fight fans? Going to be giving my prediction video for the upcoming card of the UFC 311 card. Going to be going deep and in depth about all these cards. Going to be talking about all the fights that are most important and has the most significance to me. Obviously, I know there's other cards on the early prelims. Never seen those guys. Kind of don't care about them as well. Starting off this video and starting off the prediction, I go with Caro Rosa versus Aileen Perez. Usually, I don't like to call out WMMA fights because usually they're boring or they're whatever. But this fight is going to be an absolute banger from the sound of the bell. Both of these girls are tremendous on the feet, especially I would give the edge towards Carolosa. And on the ground, and especially with the grappling, they're both able and capable of doing things, especially with Aileen Perez. She's coming off a 4-fight win streak as of right now, and she recently just got, I believe, an armbar submission over Dudakova, which is very, very impressive. And Carolosa had her war that she had with Irene Aldana. She came back after that incredible showcase that she had with her, and she dominated Ronnie Kianzad on the feet pretty convincingly. This one is kind of split down the middle. I think momentum is taking Aileen Perez up that division as of right now. But for it to be go tit for tat on the feet or to stay on the feet, I'm actually going to go with Caro Rosa to get the victory in this fight here. Moving on up the card, we have Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. Grant Dawson, as of right now, is on a 2-fight win streak. Won his last fight by ground and pound. Has been saying and said in his post-fight interview that he's been trying to get more exciting in his game. Talked about the UFC potentially even cutting him because his fights and most of his matches are really boring. I mean, he's very grappling and wrestling base heavy, so it can be. And then you have the explosive Diego Ferreira, also on a 2-fight win streak actually, and both are coming off of finishes. He actually beat Mateusz Rebecki, who went to war as of last time with Maitek Orobai. So it really is kind of just on the feet what you're kind of really getting and seeing out of these two guys. I think Diego definitely has the advantage, and if it stays on the feet, he definitely will get his way. But Grant Dawson, with the grappling, is so sticky, and once it gets into that round for him, it's kind of just stuck into the twilight zone, and he's in his own realm, and he's getting off what he needs to be able to do. I expect him to get the victory, but I also expect it to be in a boring fashion as well, because I think Diego Ferreira can be able to sustain himself on the ground. So I will go with Grant Dawson in a unfortunate, boring fight in that card. Moving on up the card, we have Zachary Reese versus Cedric Dumas. Kind of a tale of the tape between these two guys. Kind of both similar prospects. 2-fight win streak as of right now for Zachary Reese. He dominated Jose Medina in his last fight, but was unable to finish him. So that was kind of disappointing seeing that in that fight. He also lost to Cody Brunges, but Cedric Dumas, kind of just a long, lanky type fighter in the middleweight division, coming off a win against Dennis Tululin, and he also beat Cody Brunges, so he has that advantage over Zachary Reese. But Zachary Reese, the way that he's carrying that momentum his way, and especially with on the feet, I just see more ways that he's able to hurt Cedric Dumas if it stays on the feet. On the ground, it's kind of a wash, I think so. So if I were to go heavy and deep on this fight, I think definitely Dumas will have some types of moments for him, but I'm going to go with Zachary Reese by KO. Moving on up the card, we have Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak. The last fight out for Jailton Almeida, he got an RNC over Alexander Ramonov, who looked as chub as could ever be. And Sergey Spivak got the armbar victory in that terrible card of what it was, Spivak versus Tybura, pretty easily in that scramble. So on the ground, it's kind of similar and kind of the same. I mean, these guys are both submission threats. I would say more Jailton Almeida is more dangerous, especially on the ground, can have more control time with Sergey Spivak, but Spivak is a very big dude and very hard to keep on the ground, in my opinion. And if it does stay on the feet, I see more ways of victory for Sergey Spivak than Jailton Almeida, and I actually want to see more improvement that way for Jailton Almeida to actually show that he can use his boxing and kickboxing and not just be a takedown merchant and have control to win all these type of fights. So with that being said, I'm actually going to go with Sergey Spivak over Jailton Almeida in this fight. Moving on up the card, we have Peyton Talbot, the new star boy, the new prospect, the hailed prospect in the UFC, going against Ronnie Barcelos. Ronnie Barcelos, is kind of one of those Brazilian older man veterans that has been around the block already. He's also Umar, he's also Kylo Phillips, but is on a two-fight winning. Not the two-fight, but he actually just came off an RNC victory over Christian Quinones. And we already know Peyton Talbot dominating Cameron Simon, dominating Yannis Gamora, just doing whatever he wanted to do. And it's a nice step up for him, especially in the bantamweight division, to get a type of veteran like this to be able to pass that type of test that he needs to be able to show that he is that type of caliber of fighter, like an Umar who's actually fighting for the belt as of right now on this card. So I'm going to go with Peyton Talbot with the victory, but I don't think he'll get the finish, even though Ronnie Barcelos is kind of chinny. So I think this is going to be a decision, a kind of easy decision for Peyton Talbot, but good rounds and good experience for him in the octagon. Moving on up the card, we have Bogdan Guskovic versus Johnny Walker. Excuse me if I said your name wrong, Bogdan. But on a two-fight winning streak for Bogdan over Ryan Spann and Zach Pogba, really taking them out of there and getting those nice TKO victories against them. And you have Johnny Walker, who's coming off back-to-back losses, nasty KO losses against Magomed Ankalaev and Volkov Ozdemir. Even though, yes, Johnny Walker is flashy and entertaining and is a showman of all sorts, his chin is gone, and going against a up-and-comer in the light heavyweight division who has that type of power to be able to take your ass out, I kind of expect that to happen. So this is pretty easy to call out, unfortunately, for Johnny Walker. I want to see you do your thing and be the fanatical type of fighter that he is, but Bogdan Guskov is going to easily knock Johnny Walker out. Hopefully not in nasty fashion, because that would be three in a row. That'd be rough for Johnny Walker. Moving on up the card, we have Kevin Holland versus Reiner de Ritter. Kevin Holland, the absolute greatest gatekeeper in the UFC besides Mil Magny as of right now. He's coming off that rib injury loss against Roman Dolidze, kind of a fluke, was kind of doing his thing on the feet a little bit, but then when it got towards the grappling, it showed the dominance of Roman Dolidze, again, being that kind of bigger brute type of man. And you have Reiner de Ritter, who beat GM3 in his UFC debut by literally out GM3ing GM3. His grappling base is actually very impressive because GM3 is one of the best grapplers, honestly, in that division and in the UFC, in my honest opinion. But on the feet, he was absolute shit. And Kevin Holland is actually pretty freaking good on the feet. Not tremendous, but he's actually pretty good. And that just shows, I think that it'll be a showcase, and Kevin Holland is just going to completely outclass Reiner de Ritter and probably knock him out. Moving on up the card, we have Money Moicano versus Benil Dariush, a four-fight winning streak as of right now for Money Moicano, coming off that impressive showcase against Benoit Saint-Denis in Paris. Also has a nice victory over Jalen Turner, so he's really, really on the upswing, especially in the lightweight division. Honestly, in my opinion, he should be ranked higher as of right now compared to Benil Dariush. Benil Dariush, rightfully so, took a year off of his career to be able to recover, greatly from those nasty 2 KO losses that he had against Arman Sarukian, who's fighting for the belt as of right now on this card, and Charles Oliveira as well. So really needed that time to recover. Maybe we'll get a showcase of what the previous Benil Dariush was when he was like on that 8 or 9 fight winning streak, just showing that maybe he was the guy to be able to threaten and actually beat Islam. But for money purposes and for what I've been seeing now in recency, buoyancy, I'm going to go with Money Moicano with another KO victory over Benil Dariush. Moving on to the future fight of this card, we have what I believe is the hardest fight to be able to call on this card. We have Jiri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. I mean, bar none, these guys should have already fought each other, but, they both gave up their titles. You already kind of know the history with the light heavyweight division and the belt. Jiri was supposed to go on to face Hill, but he got injured with his shoulder. Jamal Hill got injured with his Achilles. They both were out, and then Alex Pereira then takes over the division, and not only takes over the division, but knocks out Jiri Prochazka twice, and also knocks out Jamal Hill, who's very, very salty and still wanting to be able to get that redemption for that fight again. So both of these guys are very, very motivated. and ready to get back and put their hat in the ring to be able to fight for the belt again. But with Alex Pereira still holding the belt and holding the reins in the lightweight division, light heavyweight division, excuse me, it's very, very hard to be able to sell that Yuri Prohaska third fight again. I think he would have to be able to maybe fight another fighter again, maybe like a Carlos Oberg, who's maybe coming off a win against Jan Blachowicz. But, you can definitely sell that fight very, very easily, especially with the promotion that Jamal Hill has been doing online, being the salty, salty man that he is and really wanting to get his revenge and getting that rematch again. So I don't know. I mean, compared between these two fighters, their stand up. I mean, you already know what you're getting with Yuri. You're getting that autistic type of creative, weird stand up that is just on another level. That warrior samurai spirit. And Jamal Hill is just simple, kickboxing, boxing, but very effective. Has power in his hands. I think kind of overrated power in his hands, but does have power in his hands to be able to get the guy out of there. And unfortunately, I am gonna go with Jamal Hill by KO over Jiri Prohaska. Yuri has a heart of a warrior and has been taking a lot of punishment. That's kind of his defense, is just taking the punishment. And I think eventually with those KOs from Alex Pereira, even though he did a very good showcasing and output against Alexander Rakic, I think that Jamal Hill, if he does that to Jiri Prohaska, he'll get Jiri Prohaska out of there. So I'm going to go with Jamal Hill with the winner on this future fight. And moving on to the co-main event, we have what I believe will be the bloodbath of the century pertaining to grappling. Yes, yes, yes. I don't think that we will get the similar level of a grappler's delight of what we got against Movsar Evloev and Aljamain Sterling, but I do think that we will get shades of that in this fight with Merab Dvalishvili putting his bantamweight title on the line against Umar Nurmagomedov. Obviously, Umar has the name and credibility with his, I believe, brother or cousin. They're all inbred, so it kind of doesn't really matter. But he has the Nurmagomedov name, such as Khabib. And you have Merab, who is on this unbelievable win streak, beating the names of Henry Cejudo, Jose Aldo, Peter Yan, Sean O'Malley for the belt. I mean, a murderer's row of fighters. And he actually, just held them onto the cage and just spamming, takedowns because his cardio is on another damn level. Shout out to him. He does what he needs to be able to do, and he does it, and he looks good in it. He looks dominating in it. But I don't think that he will be able to push that type of pace, or that type of pace in terms of takedowns and working with the grappling won't work on Umar as effectively, because Umar, with the Dagestani style, the brother style, it's going to be very, very hard to wear down and actually get success, I believe, with the takedowns with Umar Nurmagomedov, who is honestly a way better MMA grappler compared to a Henry Cejudo, who is an Olympic champion and is very, very known for his wrestling and his grappling in the UFC. So I think that kind of negates that. I think it negates each other in terms of the grappling, even though I do think we will get a lot of grappling exchanges. And I actually do believe that Umar will be a lot more successful than Merab in terms of the grappling exchanges. But I think the majority, if not 50% of the fight, will definitely be on the feet. And while it will be on the feet, Merab is kind of not good on the feet, kind of at all. He kind of just uses it as a way to get into his takedowns, while we actually saw and was showcased that Umar could actually kickbox and actually know how to do it, and kind of did it effectively, even though Corey Sandhagen, the guy who he did beat to be able to earn this title shot, didn't really do much effectively against Umar, who's, you would say on paper, Corey Sandhagen is a better kickboxer and stand-up fighter compared to Umar, but that really didn't show and work out as well as he thought he was. So with the success of Umar Nurmagomedov having against Corey Sandhagen, actually showing and displaying that he actually has some chops in terms of his kickboxing, I think it really boosted his confidence. With that, I think he will show more of that and actually have that confidence and use it in this fight for the belt. So while I do think this fight will definitely not be a finish, I think this will definitely go to the end as a decision. But I do think that unanimously Umar Nurmagomedov will beat Merab Dvalishvili to the bitter end. But I do think, especially with all the talk that's been on social media and also through all the press conference, on the meetings and all the face-to-faces that they've been having, I do think it will be a very, very highly anticipated fight, something that I honestly wouldn't be able to say with these brother-brother type of fighters going against each other. But I do believe that will be the case. And I will go with Umar Nurmagomedov to reign as the new champion of the bantamweight division. Moving on to the main event, we have Islam Makhachev putting his pound for pound number one ranking and his lightweight belt on the line against the number one ranked contender Arman Sarukian. A rematch of these two guys where they fought each other earlier in his career. I believe it was the first fight and was a last minute replacement for Arman Sarukian going against Islam Makhachev, where Arman actually showed, actually that he was one of the best fighters and had a lot of issues and problems that he actually created against Islam. Where these kind of guys, they're both kind of brother styles. They come from that type of region, both of them as well. Um, Really, they're kind of similar. I wouldn't say the same, but they're similar in terms of fighters, grappling, wrestling, heavy, submissions as well. Actually, a lot of improvement in my opinion, especially with the stand up for Arman Sarukian, with his boxing and kickboxing and Muay Thai. It's actually grown up in levels. You can actually see that in the last fight that he had against Charles Oliveira. Even though I do believe that I thought Charles Oliveira, while he didn't have a great performance, I did think that he actually barely edged it out in that fight. But I'm not mad with the Arman win. And you have Islam, who's coming off a really gritty and tough and just digged deep in that fight against Dustin Poirier in that fifth round submission where he got that Darce choke in and did what he needed to be able to do. A lot of people thought it was going to be a lot easier than what it actually showcased to be. But in the end, Islam showed his class and showed how he was at least above levels with Dustin Poirier, where a lot of people think that he was going to get outclassed, especially on the feet. He actually showed that he's actually has those type of chops on the stand-up that really shows that Islam is a problem anywhere in any type of style in the fight game. And this is honestly very, very much a hard fight to me be able to call. Arman Sarukian is on an absolute tear, going through a lot of fighters, even though a lot of fighters don't really have big names, but he's on a win streak. He has the win against Charles Oliveira, has the confidence, and has the belief that he can be able to beat an Islam. I actually thought he beat Islam in the first fight that they actually were into. So he carries that type of confidence, carries that type of motivation with himself. He's going to want to be able to display that, but the problem and issue that I continue to keep running into is that, yes, they do have similar styles within each other, so they're kind of be able to even out each other. It's kind of a wash in terms of the grappling and kind of a wash in terms of the feet. But where I run into the issue, like I said earlier, is that I don't believe Arman Sarukian has enough to be able to worry Islam Makhachev in terms of a Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier, you kind of, had a shot or a chance where you did believe that Dustin was going to be able to knock this dude out. Volkanovski doesn't have that type of power, but he has a tremendous kickboxing game, a lot better than what an Arman Sarukian has. And Charles Oliveira is a more dangerous threat on the ground, even though he might not have the consistency of control as an Arman Sarukian. He has the submission game, and as well he has knockout power in the hands, and Islam Makhachev kind of negated that. So while Islam kind of negated all those type of games that all the fighters that he's also already ran through with his title reign, one thing that you can say is maybe he is peaking or plateauing at what he's at right now. This may be just his peak of what he can just be in at 155. Maybe he does need that bump up into 170 to be able to flesh out more of his career, to show more of it. But you have Bilal as the title holder as of right now, so that kind of conflicts with certain things with the Muslim and the brother things. But Arman Sarukian, I do think he will put up a hell of a performance. I think he will show out. I think this will be a very close fight. I think he's there to win. I definitely don't think he's in there to go and lay down. I think that he carries that confidence in the first fight, carries the confidence and the momentum of the win streak that he's on, and especially him going for that title and him actually being and thinking that he was the rightful winner in the first fight and wanting to come out and get the belt and really showcase that, yes, he is one of the best fighters in the lightweight division as of right now. But Islam just has the kill switch. We saw it in, the fight against Charles where before he submitted him, he hurt him and knocked him down to the ground. The KO against Volkanovski, and it was able to hurt Dustin Poirier on the feet and got the sub on the ground. Where with Arman, there's not really a lot of showcases. He did get the jab KO against Benil Dariush, but his chin was already checked, and he already got KO'd before that against Charles Oliveira. And yes, he did have moments and did look very good on the feet and had the control on the ground against Oliveira, but never really hurt or got to points where he was going to be able to submit Oliveira. So that threat of having the fight finished, I don't see that from Arman, even though I do think, again, he will put up a hell of a fight and will impress, obviously. But I just think Islam is on another tier in terms of the stand-up, and as well as the stand-up, I do think that he has that KO type of power to be able to ward off and keep Arman at arm's length reach and at bay for as long as he can. So I'm going to go with Islam Makhachev by unanimous decision, probably like a 49, 46, 48, 47, maybe on one judge's scorecard. And those are my predictions for UFC 311. UFC and MMA fans, obviously like this video. If you like this video, comment your opinions on what you think is going to go down and what are your predictions in the UFC 311 card. Subscribe, man. Subscribe if you want to be able to see more of this type of consistent content that I'm going to continually put out for you guys. Really need you guys to be able to subscribe if you enjoy this channel and this type of content that I'm putting out for you guys. Thank you guys again for watching again, and peace.